Ever found yourself gazing at the night sky only to wonder why we can't see the moon during the day? It's a question that has perplexed many of us, sparking our curiosity and fueling our thirst for knowledge. This video is your guide to understanding the intriguing celestial mechanics behind this phenomenon. We'll dive deep into the cosmos, exploring the moon's orbit, the daylight factor, the timing aspect, and debunking some common myths. In this video, we will unravel the mystery behind the moon's daytime disappearance. To grasp this phenomenon, we first need to understand the moon's orbit. Our moon, Earth's only natural satellite, moves in a fascinating ballet around our planet. It follows an elliptical path, not a perfect circle, which means the distance between Earth and the moon varies throughout its orbit. The moon completes its orbit around the Earth approximately every 28 days, a cycle known as a lunar month. Yet the moon doesn't just twirl around the Earth. It also spins on its axis like a top on a table. This rotation is synchronous, meaning the moon rotates once on its axis in the same time it takes to orbit the Earth once. This synchronicity is why we always see the same side of the moon from Earth. Now, let's talk about the moon's phases, which are directly related to its position in orbit relative to the Earth and the Sun. When the moon is between the Earth and the Sun, we have a new moon. During this phase, the moon's dark side faces Earth, making it nearly invisible to us. As the moon continues its orbit, more of its illuminated side becomes visible from Earth. We call this waxing. When the moon is on the opposite side of the Earth from the Sun, it's fully illuminated, and we have a full moon. Then, the moon starts to wane or appear to shrink, as less of its illuminated side is visible from Earth. The moon's visibility from Earth isn't just about its phases, though. It also depends on its position in the sky relative to the Sun and the observer's location on Earth. Sometimes the moon is up during the day and sometimes it's up at night. It's a delicate dance of celestial bodies all moving in concert. So, the moon's orbit plays a vital role in when and where we can see the moon. It's not just about whether it's day or night on Earth. It's about the moon's position in its orbit, its phase, and our position on Earth. This interplay of factors determines when and where we can catch a glimpse of our beautiful lunar neighbor. But the orbit isn't the only factor. Daylight plays a significant role too. You see, during the day, the sun is out in all its glory, flooding our world with light. This light, as beautiful and essential as it is, has a downside. It outshines the moon. The moon by itself doesn't emit any light. Instead, what we see when we look up at the night sky is the reflection of the sun's light on the moon's surface. Now, when the sun is up during the day, its light is so bright and so intense that it overshadows the faint glow of the moon. Imagine you're at a party and there's a superstar in the room. It's likely that everyone will be so drawn to the superstar that they'll barely notice anyone else. This is essentially what happens during the day. The sun, our superstar, takes center stage, and the moon quietly fades into the background. Now let's delve a bit deeper into the science of it. The sun is about 400,000 times brighter than the full moon. Given this massive difference in brightness, our eyes, which are sensitive to light, adjust to the intense sunlight, making it difficult for us to perceive the relatively dim light of the moon. Our atmosphere also plays a part. It scatters sunlight in all directions, creating what we know as daylight. This scattered light further adds to the brightness of the day, reducing our ability to see the moon even more. In essence, the moon is usually there in the daytime sky, but it's just not easy to see. It's hidden in plain sight, as they say. We need the right conditions, a clear sky, a nearly full moon, and the sun low on the horizon, to be able to spot the moon during the day. Thus, the brightness of the sun often masks the moon, making it seem invisible during the day. But remember, just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. The moon is always up there doing its thing, whether we see it or not. The timing of when we look up at the sky also matters. Consider for a moment the moon and its journey around the Earth. It doesn't just pop up at night and vanish by day. Rather, it carries on its celestial dance around our planet, irrespective of whether we're basking in sunlight or cloaked in darkness. So the question is, when exactly during the day can we see the moon? The answer lies in the moon's phase and its position in the sky. Let's break that down. The moon goes through several phases in its 29.5-day lunar cycle, from new moon to full moon and back again. During a new moon, the moon is between the Earth and the sun, rendering it practically invisible to us. But as days pass and the moon moves further from the sun in our sky, it waxes into a crescent moon, then a first quarter moon, and so on, until it becomes a full moon. Now here's where timing comes into play. During the waxing phase, the moon rises during the day and sets at night. This means that from a crescent moon to a first quarter moon, you're likely to see the moon in the western sky during the afternoon and early evening. As it moves towards a full moon, it becomes visible later in the evening and can often be seen in the sky most of the night. On the other hand, during the waning phase, when the moon transitions from a full moon back to a new moon, it rises later at night and sets later in the day. This means you're more likely to see the moon in the eastern sky during the early morning and late afternoon. In essence, the moon is often out during the day, but its visibility depends on its phase and where it is in its orbit around the Earth. It's a cosmic game of hide and seek, and we're the seekers, timing our gaze just right to catch the moon in its daytime glory. Therefore, timing is another crucial factor in our ability to see the moon during daylight hours. Now that we understand the science, let's debunk some common myths about the moon. First, there's the pervasive belief that the moon is only visible at night. This is simply not true. The moon is not nocturnal. It doesn't have a bedtime or a wake-up call. It's always there, orbiting the Earth, whether it's day or night. The visibility of the moon during the day depends on its phase and position relative to the sun and Earth. When the moon is in the new moon phase, for example, it's too close to the sun in the sky to be visible. But when it's in its first quarter phase, you can often see it in the afternoon daylight. The second myth we often hear is that we can't see the moon during the day because it's on the other side of the Earth. This is a misconception. The moon orbits the Earth approximately once every 28 days. This means that at any given time, the moon could be anywhere in its orbit. Sometimes it's on the same side of the Earth as the sun, and sometimes it's on the opposite side. The moon can certainly be visible during daylight hours, depending on its phase and position. Another misunderstanding revolves around the belief that the moon's phases are caused by the shadow of the Earth falling on the moon. Well, that's not the case. The phases of the moon are actually caused by the changing positions of the moon, Earth, and the sun, and how much of the moon's surface we can see from Earth at any given time. Finally, there's the myth that full moons are rare. In reality, we experience a full moon approximately once a month or 12 times a year. So, while they may be special, they're not exactly rare. As we've seen, these myths don't hold up against scientific facts. The moon is not just a nighttime spectacle. It's a constant companion in our celestial journey, visible during the day and night, depending on its phase and position. Let's recap what we've learned today. We've embarked on a celestial journey to understand why we often can't spot the moon during the day. Our expedition began with the moon's orbit. We discovered that the moon's path around the Earth, combined with our planet's rotation, makes the moon visible at different times of the day and night. We then shed light on the daylight factor. The sun's overwhelming brightness often outshines the moon in the daytime. However, the moon is still there, just harder to see against the bright blue sky. Timing also plays a significant role. Depending on the moon's phase and position in its orbit, it can sometimes be seen during the day. Our journey wouldn't have been complete without debunking some myths. Contrary to popular belief, the moon doesn't disappear during the day. It's always there, just not always visible to the naked eye. We also learned that the moon is not strictly a nocturnal celestial body. It doesn't strictly rise at night and set at dawn. Its visibility depends on a multitude of factors, so next time you gaze at the sky, you'll know exactly why you can or cannot see the moon.